The sharp voice of the flight attendant cut across the polished silence of first class. "Move to the back where you belong." 17-year-old Jordan Miles froze in the aisle, his boarding pass clutched tightly in his hand. Seat 2A, printed clearly in bold. The hum of the Airbus cabin surrounded him as other passengers shifted in their wide leather seats, sipping sparkling water and scrolling through phones that cost as much as some people's rent. Jordan took a steady breath. His backpack, sleek and expensive, swung over his shoulder. Eyes followed him from every row as if his very presence was an interruption. He moved forward, but before he could reach his seat, a tall woman stepped into his path. Her name tag gleamed under the cabin lights. Claire Thompson, senior flight attendant. The warmth in her smile disappeared the moment her gaze landed on him. Her tone was firm, stripped of courtesy. "Excuse me, young man. You must be lost. First class isn't open to everyone." Jordan lifted the boarding pass higher so there could be no mistake. "Seat 2A, paid in full." Claire's eyes narrowed. She reached out, snatching the pass as though it were counterfeit money. Her fingers traced the details as if she were inspecting evidence at a trial. A ripple of whispers spread through the cabin. Every head turned toward him, some curious, others judgmental. "This looks fraudulent," Claire declared loudly enough for everyone to hear. "You'll need to head back to economy." Jordan didn't move. His voice was calm, controlled, carrying the weight of someone far older than his years. "That boarding pass is valid. I bought this seat with my own card." From the second row, a passenger slid out her phone and hit record. The red light blinked, capturing every word. Claire noticed, and her voice rose even higher. "Sir, don't make this more difficult. Other passengers are waiting." The gold watch on Jordan's wrist caught the light. A graduation gift from his grandfather. Priceless to him. Worth more than Claire's monthly paycheck. She didn't notice. Her eyes searched his face for deception that wasn't there. Jordan reached for his wallet. Inside, a black American Express Centurion card rested against his ID. A card so rare that few people in the world carried it. He held it up without fanfare. Claire barely glanced at it. "I don't need to see anything else," she said coldly. "Kids like you think you can trick your way into first class with fake documents." From the very front, an older man in 1A cleared his throat. "Excuse me, miss. I saw this young man check in at the gate. He belongs here." Claire turned sharply toward him, her practiced smile snapping back into place. "Sir, I appreciate your concern, but airline policy requires us to investigate suspicious boarding." Suspicious. The word hung heavy in the air. The pause that followed was long enough for everyone to hear the prejudice beneath it. Phones shifted, screens glowed. Passengers were not only watching, they were recording. Jordan's phone buzzed in his pocket. A text preview lit the screen. From Dad. "Landing in 20 minutes. See you at the hotel." Jordan quickly silenced it, his jaw tightening. He didn't want his father involved. Not yet. But the cabin tension was spreading like a storm cloud. Every passing second made the injustice louder. A new figure appeared at the aircraft door. The gate supervisor. His shirt rumpled, his tie crooked. His name tag read Greg Lawson. Claire's relief was instant. "Greg, we have a problem. This young man's ticket looks questionable." Greg's eyes scanned Jordan in 2 seconds flat. He didn't even bother to read the boarding pass. "Son, step off the plane. We'll sort this out at the terminal." Jordan raised his chin. "Sort what out? I've shown you my ID and my ticket. What more do you need?" "Don't get smart with me," Greg snapped. "We've seen scams like this before." Phones kept rising. A young woman 3 seats back opened her Instagram Live. Within seconds, dozens of strangers were watching. Then hundreds, then more. She whispered into her phone. "We are watching what looks like discrimination against a black teenager in first class." The numbers on her screen climbed fast. Comments flashed in, "This is wrong. Sue them." "Which airline is this?" Jordan stayed still, refusing to be rattled. He pulled a card holder from his pocket, monogrammed with his initials. Inside were business cards with his name embossed. He handed one to Greg, but Greg barely looked before giving it back. "I'd like to file a formal complaint," Jordan said calmly. Claire laughed. "You can file all the complaints you want from the terminal." The intercom buzzed with the captain's voice. "Cabin crew, prepare for departure." Greg checked his watch and spoke into his radio. "Captain, delay departure. We have a verification issue." The passengers groaned. Someone shouted from economy, "What's the holdup?" Jordan straightened, his height imposing, his face calm. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. Before we continue, I'll be recording this for my own records. He tapped his camera on. Claire stepped back quickly. Sir, you cannot record airline staff without consent. From 1A, the older man interrupted. Actually, passengers can record interactions like this. It's been upheld in court. The Instagram live stream count soared past 1,000. Anger filled the comments. Disgusting. Boycott them. I'm screen recording this. Greg's radio crackled. Ground control to Flight 502. Departure status. Greg pressed the button. Ground? We need a 5-minute delay. The cabin murmured louder. Every minute of delay was now being broadcast online. Jordan looked at his phone again. His father's name was there in his contacts. Daniel Miles, CEO. His finger hovered above the call button. He hesitated, then lifted his eyes to Claire and Greg. His voice was low, measured, dangerous in its calm. I'm going to make one phone call. Just one. Claire folded her arms. You can call whoever you want. From the terminal. Jordan's eyes didn't leave hers. No, I think you'll want me to make it from right here. The cabin fell into silence. Phones stayed pointed. Security officers appeared at the door. And what had begun as a single act of prejudice was about to become a moment the entire world would see. 2 uniformed security officers stepped into the cabin. Their presence shifted the air immediately. What had been a tense standoff now felt like the start of something larger. Passengers leaned forward in their seats. The phone's recording never stopped. The taller officer, with gray streaks in his hair and years of experience etched into his face, spoke first. What's going on here? His badge-red officer Ramirez, Greg Lawson, puffed up his chest, eager to sound authoritative. We have a passenger with questionable documentation. The flight attendant flagged him. We need him removed for safety and comfort of others. Ramirez turned to Jordan. Son, can I see your boarding pass and ID? Jordan handed them over without hesitation. His driver's license. His boarding pass. Everything genuine. Ramirez studied them carefully under the cabin light, comparing photo to face, name to seat number. He checked once, then again. Finally, he looked up. These documents are in order. Claire stepped forward, her voice sharp with panic. Officer, with respect, we've seen sophisticated fraud before. The way he's dressed, the printing on the pass, it doesn't add up. The phones caught her every word. The Instagram stream now showed nearly 3,000 live viewers. Comments scrolled too fast to read. This is racism. Unbelievable. Keep recording. A passenger whispered into her camera. This video is trending already. Los Angeles viewers are flooding in. Dr. Lewis, the older man in 1A, stood halfway up from his seat. Officer, I've observed this entire interaction. The young man has been respectful. He's shown valid identification multiple times. There are no grounds for removal, Greg snapped at him. Sir, please remain seated. This doesn't concern you. Dr. Lewis's voice rose with conviction. Discrimination concerns everyone. Gasps moved through the cabin. Ramirez studied Jordan again. His watch gleamed under the light. His Centurion card sat tucked in his wallet, its black surface unmistakable. Ramirez nodded slowly. He had worked in security long enough to recognize authenticity when he saw it. Claire's voice cracked for the first time. That card could be fake too, but Ramirez wasn't convinced. He saw more than just clothes or a card. He saw posture, confidence, education. Jordan wasn't bluffing. The second officer, Johnson, who had been silent until now, asked plainly, Miss Thompson, what exactly made you suspicious of this passenger? The pause was too long. Claire's lips parted, but no words came. She stammered. Well, the way he looked, it's unusual to see. She stopped. She couldn't finish. Not with cameras recording. Not with thousands already watching live. Greg jumped in quickly. Officers, we have protocols. When crew members suspect fraud, we back their judgment. Dr. Lewis cut him off. Protocols based on what? His skin color? His age? The hum of the engines filled the silence that followed. Jordan's phone buzzed again. A text from his father lit up on the screen. Board meeting running late. Text me when you land. The name was clearly visible to those nearby. Daniel Miles. Ramirez's eyes flicked to the name. He had heard it before. He glanced at Jordan. Is that your father? Jordan nodded. Yes, sir. Claire's confidence faltered again. Sweat dotted her forehead. The Instagram live shot past 4,000 viewers. Comments turned into a flood of outrage. Get this on TikTok. Expose them. What's his name? This is Discrimination Live. Jordan stared directly at Claire and Greg. His patience had run out. He unlocked his phone and hovered his finger above his father's number. His voice carried across the cabin. I will make one call. When I do, this entire situation will change. Greg smirked, dismissive.
Kid, I don't care if you call the president.
You're not flying first class today. Claire nodded, backing him. Make your call from the terminal. Jordan tapped the contact. The phone rang once. Passengers held their breath. Ramirez stepped closer, sensing this wasn't a bluff. In all his years, he had learned to read people. This boy wasn't desperate. He was steady, calculated. The Instagram Live climbed higher. 6,000 people now watching. Comments exploded. He's about to destroy them. Screen record everything. Don't stop streaming. Second ring. The cabin lights flickered as ground crew worked outside. Departure slot time was slipping away. Jordan looked from Claire to Greg. His voice was steady, but now it carried weight that made them uneasy. Before someone answers, I want to be clear. This entire conversation is being recorded by multiple people. Whatever happens next will be public record. Third ring. Greg's radio crackled. Flight 502, ground control. Departure status needed immediately. You're about to miss your slot. Claire's hands trembled as she adjusted her uniform. The calm authority in Jordan's voice unnerved her. Fourth ring. Ramirez leaned in closer, watching the boy, reading every detail. The expensive watch. The Centurion card. The private school composure. Nothing matched the story Claire was pushing. A passenger whispered into her live stream. Over 6,000 people are watching this unfold in real time. Fifth ring. The silence in the cabin grew heavier. And then the sixth ring. Connected. A deep voice filled the cabin through Jordan's speaker. Steady. Professional. With the unmistakable tone of command, this is Daniel. Miles. Claire's face drained of color. Greg's expression twisted. Recognition flashed across his eyes. Jordan lifted the phone closer. His words carried across first class like the strike of a bell. Hi, Dad, I'm on Flight 502 to Denver. We have a problem. The staff here don't believe I belong in first class. The cabin fell into total silence. Thousands were watching online. Every passenger leaned in. Because what had begun as a cruel humiliation was about to become a story that would shake an entire airline. Daniel Miles's voice came clear through the speaker. Calm, deliberate, but with an authority that commanded silence. What kind of problem, son? Are you safe? Jordan didn't flinch. His eyes locked on Claire, then Greg. I'm safe, Dad, but I've been told my boarding pass is fraudulent. They're asking me to leave first class. The air in the cabin shifted. Every passenger leaned in closer. Phones captured every word. Over 7,000 people watched live as the weight of the name Daniel Miles sank in. Claire covered her mouth with her hand. Her eyes went wide, panic dawning in her expression. She knew that name now. Greg froze, his face flushing with embarrassment and dread. Dr. Lewis broke the silence. Did he just say his father is Daniel Miles? Officer Ramirez finally understood the puzzle. Daniel Miles wasn't just any executive. He was the CEO of Skylux Airlines, the very airline they were sitting on. Social media exploded. The comments on the live stream flooded in. His dad is the CEO. This is about to get insane. She's finished. Keep recording. Jordan turned the phone toward Claire. Dad, the flight attendant's name is Claire Thompson. She's right here. Daniel's voice sharpened slightly, steel cutting through courtesy. Ms. Thompson, please take the phone. Claire's hands trembled as she accepted it. Her voice cracked. Mr. Miles, sir, we didn't know. Daniel's tone cut her off. Didn't know what, Ms. Thompson? Her mouth opened, but no words came. Didn't know what, Daniel repeated, his patience thinning. Claire's words spilled out, desperate. We didn't know he was your son, sir. The pause that followed was devastating. I see, Daniel said slowly. So you would have treated any other black teenager the same way. The cabin gasped. Claire's face collapsed. She had admitted everything. Greg tried to save the situation, stepping forward. Mr. Miles, sir, this is Greg Lawson, gate supervisor. We were simply following standard procedures for suspicious boarding. Daniel's voice was cold, precise. Mr. Lawson explained to me what exactly was suspicious about my son's boarding pass. Greg's reply came too fast. Well, sir, it's unusual to see someone his age in first class, and Stop. Daniel cut him off, his tone final. Are you suggesting that young black men cannot afford first-class seats? The live stream exploded again. Viewer count surged past 8,000. Comments poured in faster than anyone could read. He caught them red-handed. This is history.
She admitted it on record.
Boycott Skylux if nothing changes. Jordan stood quietly through it all, calm and composed. He pulled out his student ID and held it up. Jordan Miles, student body president. Westbridge Academy, one of the most prestigious private schools in California. Ramirez examined it and nodded. This is legitimate, he looked at Jordan. Why didn't you show this earlier? Jordan's answer was steady, deliberate. Because my boarding pass and driver's license should have been enough. I shouldn't have to prove my worth with a private school ID. Daniel's voice carried through the speaker again. Jordan, are you recording this interaction? Yes, Dad, and so are several passengers. It's already live. Good, Daniel replied firmly. Ms. Thompson, Mr. Lawson, I want to be very clear about what just happened. You discriminated against my son based on his race and age. You did this publicly, in front of witnesses, and it is now being broadcast to thousands of people worldwide. Claire's eyes filled with tears. Sir, I made a mistake. I'm sorry. Daniel's response was calm but merciless. No, Miss Thompson, you didn't make a mistake. You made a choice. You chose to assume that a black teenager couldn't possibly belong in first class. You chose to question documents you knew were valid. You chose to call security instead of handling the situation with fairness. Greg's radio crackled urgently. Flight 502, ground control. Final call for departure clearance. Daniel heard it through the phone. Mr. Lawson, tell ground control this aircraft will not depart until I have resolved this personally. Greg's face turned pale. Sir, if we miss our slot, the passengers will wait, Daniel snapped. This plane is grounded until further notice. The cabin erupted in whispers. A passenger whispered into her stream. The CEO just grounded his own plane. 8,000 people are watching this happen live. Jordan lifted his phone, showing a text thread with his father. Months of messages, dinner plans, school updates, family trips. Proof that this was no bluff. Dr. Lewis shook his head in awe. In 30 years of flying, I've never seen anything like this. And in that moment, the humiliation that had started with one voice in the aisle had turned into a global spectacle. One teenager, calm and unshaken, was holding an entire airline accountable. The plane finally departed, but the silence inside first class was heavy. No one looked at Claire. No one looked at Greg. The passengers glanced only at Jordan, the teenager who had stood his ground with a calm strength that shook everyone. Phones stayed out, screens lit with messages. The internet was already on fire. By the time Flight 502 touched down in Denver, the story had spread beyond social media. News outlets picked it up. Headlines flared across phones before the wheels even touched the runway. CEO grounds plane after staff discriminates against his son. Skylux Airlines faces crisis as viral video exposes racial bias. At that very moment, Daniel Miles' own flight from Chicago was making its descent into Denver. Weather had delayed him, giving him time to review the endless stream of incident reports pouring into his inbox. His expression remained calm, but the fury behind his eyes was unmistakable. Skylux Airlines maintained a private conference facility deep inside the administrative wing of Denver International. Its walls of glass overlooked the glowing night sky, where aircraft moved like restless fireflies across the tarmac. That was where Daniel would meet with the staff whose decisions had triggered a firestorm. Inside the polished conference room, Claire Thompson sat at the far end of a long mahogany table. Her uniform was wrinkled, her eyes red from crying. Greg Lawson sat several seats away, as if distance could save him. Two executives waited beside them, Allison Grant, General Counsel, Victor Martinez, VP of Customer Relations, and Dr. Renee Brooks, the airline's newly appointed Chief Diversity Officer. The door opened at precisely 9:50 p.m. Daniel entered with steady steps. A tall man, salt and pepper hair brushed neatly back, the presence of someone who had built an empire brick by brick. He placed his briefcase on the table, opened his laptop, and connected it to the large screen. A dashboard filled the wall with harsh numbers. Mentions of Skylux on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, 70,000 negative posts in 3 hours, 12,000 Instagram uploads, over 2 million TikTok views. After-market trading showed the stock price had already dropped more than 4%. Daniel's voice was steady. but the air around him was sharp as glass. "Ms. Thompson, Mr. Lawson, thank you for waiting. I've reviewed the reports. I've watched the live streams. I've read every public reaction." He clicked the screen again. New numbers appeared. This is where we stand. 73,000 negative mentions in 3 hours. Customer service flooded with 1,200 calls. 87% of those callers are expressing concern about racial bias. And this is only the beginning. General Counsel Allison Grant folded her hands on the table. From a legal perspective, we are staring at potential federal civil rights violations. Section 1981 of the Civil Rights Act. The Department of Transportation will also open inquiries under the Air Carrier Access Rules. Daniel turned to her without hesitation. "Financial exposure?" Her answer was measured but grim. "If this goes to settlement, we are looking at $200,000 to $500,000. If it escalates to trial with viral video evidence, the number will soar. That's not counting reputation damage." Victor Martinez leaned forward, his voice low. "The brand impact could cost us far more. Preliminary analysis suggests up to a 3% reduction in bookings over the next 6 months, $45 million in lost revenue." The room went silent. Claire's hands clenched in her lap. Greg's jaw tightened. Dr. Brooks, the diversity officer, spoke next. "David, in the last 2 years, discrimination complaints in the airline industry have risen 23%. But Skylux is an outlier. This quarter alone, we've had 47 complaints. That's 300% above the industry average." Daniel's expression darkened. He turned his gaze directly on Claire. "Ms. Thompson, walk me through your decision-making process." Her voice was barely above a whisper. "When I saw your son, I thought, he must be lost. It was automatic. I didn't think." Daniel repeated her words back slowly. "You didn't think. You have been with this airline for 8 years. In that time, how many passengers have you accused of fraud?" Her lips trembled. "None, sir." "This was my first." Allison checked her laptop. "That's correct. 0 formal fraud reports in 8 years. The silence that followed was crushing. Greg tried to cut in. "Sir, when Claire called me, I decided to involve security. That's standard protocol when a passenger becomes uncooperative." Daniel's eyes cut to him. "Uncooperative?" He tapped a key on his laptop. The screen shifted to a gate camera feed. "This is footage from gate B7. Watch carefully." The grainy recording showed Jordan standing calmly, showing his ID, his boarding pass. Speaking with composure, never raising his voice, "Mr. Lawson," Daniel said quietly. "Show me where in this footage my son is uncooperative." Greg swallowed hard. I cannot." Daniel closed his laptop. His voice dropped lower, but the weight of it filled the room. Nearly $500,000 has already been spent this year settling discrimination claims against this airline. That does not account for the damage to our name, to our values. Tonight, you both have taken this company to the edge of disaster. Claire's tears finally broke. "Mr. Miles, I know I was wrong. I want to make it right." Daniel's gaze was unflinching. "Making it right requires more than tears. It requires change. Not just for you, for this airline, for every passenger we serve." He clicked one final slide onto the screen. Bold letters glowed across the monitor. Skylux Dignity Standards Initiative. And in that moment, everyone at the table knew the airline was about to change forever. The bold words on the screen glowed like a challenge. Skylux Dignity Standards Initiative. Daniel Miles stood at the head of the table, his shoulders squared, his voice calm but edged with iron. "Effective immediately, this airline will change the way it operates. Tonight was not just about my son. It was about a system that allowed 2 employees to act on assumptions instead of facts. That ends now." The room was frozen. Every word felt like a verdict. "First," Daniel continued, "Skylux will adopt a zero-tolerance policy for discrimination. Any employee found guilty of treating passengers unfairly because of race, age, gender, or any protected characteristic will face immediate termination." Victor Martinez scribbled notes. His brow furrowed. "Second," Daniel went on, "all customer-facing staff will undergo mandatory monthly training on bias, cultural awareness, and de-escalation. We will partner with leading civil rights organizations to ensure these programs are rigorous and real." Dr. Brooks nodded, her eyes burning with conviction. "Third," Daniel said, tapping the screen, "passengers will have a new way to hold us accountable. A real-time reporting system in our mobile app. If a passenger experiences discrimination, they can submit an instant complaint. We will guarantee a response within 24 hours. Claire wiped at her tears, silent and pale. Fourth, Daniel declared, Skylux will invite independent auditors every quarter to review how we treat our passengers. Their reports will be made public. Transparency will no longer be optional. The executives shifted in their seats. This was beyond anything they had expected. And fifth, Daniel said, his voice rising, we will equip staff with body cameras for all passenger verification or removal cases. Every interaction will be recorded. Evidence will protect passengers from bias and protect employees from false claims. No one will operate in shadows again. The room erupted in whispers. This was bold, unprecedented, far beyond what any other airline had dared. Dr. Brooks leaned forward. Daniel, this goes further than industry standards. It could set a new model for airlines worldwide. Daniel looked directly at Claire and Greg. His eyes were steady, merciless. You both have a choice tonight. Option A, accept immediate termination and permanent blacklisting from this industry. Option B, undergo the most intensive bias training program we have ever built, issue public apologies, and spend 1 year under probation with quarterly reviews. Claire's lips quivered. Her voice broke. I choose training. I want to learn. I want to do better. Greg's jaw tightened, but even he bowed his head. Option B, sir. Allison Grant, the general counsel, tapped her pen against her notes. Daniel, what about the public response? Media, social media, investors. They'll demand answers. Daniel's reply came without hesitation. Tomorrow morning, I will hold a press conference. I will admit our failure openly. I will announce the Dignity Standards Initiative. I will commit to making Skylux the leader in inclusive travel. He closed his laptop. And we will back those words with action. $2 million will be invested immediately into a fund dedicated to anti-discrimination programs in this industry. Victor Martinez glanced at his tablet. The market is already responding. Our stock was down over 4% earlier tonight. But after news leaked of your decisive response, it's climbing back. Investors trust strong leadership. Daniel shook his head. The stock price is not what matters. What matters is trust. If we cannot guarantee dignity for every passenger, then this airline does not deserve to exist. He gathered his papers. His voice softened, but the edge of command never left. One final point. My son Jordan handled this humiliation with more composure than either of you did. He could have destroyed your reputations entirely. Instead, he chose dignity over revenge. That is the standard I expect from every Skylux employee from this day forward. The conference room went silent. Through the glass walls, aircraft rolled across the runways, engines glowing against the dark sky. Yet inside the room, everyone knew the airline itself had just crossed into new territory. What had begun as a humiliating standoff in the aisle of a plane was about to transform not just Skylux Airlines, but the entire industry. Months passed, but the echoes of Flight 502 never faded. What began as a humiliating moment for a 17-year-old in a crowded cabin had grown into a movement that reshaped an entire industry. Claire Thompson was no longer just a flight attendant. After completing the most demanding training program in airline history, she returned as a senior diversity training coordinator. Every week she stood before rooms filled with employees, telling them her story with painful honesty. She admitted the harm she had caused not just to Jordan but to the airline itself. That night cost us millions of dollars, she told them. But more importantly, it nearly cost us our integrity. I don't want you to repeat my mistake. Her sessions became the cornerstone of the Dignity Standards Initiative. Over 40 hours of training each year were mandatory for every customer-facing employee. The curriculum covered bias recognition, de-escalation, cultural competency, and live scenarios. Staff practiced not just procedures but empathy. Jordan's story spread far beyond the walls of Skylux Airlines. At 18, now a freshman at Stanford, he had already founded the Dignity in Travel Foundation. The organization worked with multiple airlines to implement similar anti-discrimination programs. Its mobile app allowed passengers worldwide to report incidents instantly. Within its first year, over 300,000 people had downloaded it. The statistics spoke for themselves. Discrimination complaints across Skylux dropped by 70% in a single year. Customer satisfaction scores rose across every demographic. Federal agencies commended the airline publicly for setting a new standard, but the impact went deeper than numbers. Jordan himself had become a voice for change. At universities, business schools, and public forums, he spoke about dignity in travel, about calm courage in the face of injustice, and about the responsibility of corporations to do better. Students, executives, and community leaders listened. His words carried more weight than any press release ever could. Not everyone survived the shift. Greg Lawson's probation revealed patterns of bias stretching back years. He failed review after review and was eventually dismissed permanently. A shared industry database ensured he never returned to aviation. Meanwhile, the passengers who had witnessed the incident became part of the story. Emma Perez, the young woman who had live-streamed the entire confrontation, transformed her viral video into a full documentary. Seat 2A, a story of dignity and change, premiered at Sundance and was later acquired by a global streaming service. It won awards, but more importantly, it ignited conversations around dinner tables, classrooms, and boardrooms. Dr. Lewis, the man in 1A who had spoken up that night, became a regular advisor to the foundation, using his medical and social influence to champion fairness in public services. He often said, "That boy reminded us that staying silent is never an option. Justice depends on ordinary people speaking at the right moment." Inside Skylux headquarters, the transformation was staggering. Quarterly audits were published openly. The airline's reputation rebounded so strongly that it gained over 2 million new customers who chose it specifically for its inclusive policies. Business schools studied the case. Industry leaders copied the model. But for Jordan, it was never about statistics or headlines. It was about people. About ensuring no other young traveler would face what he had faced in that aisle. When he graduated from Stanford, his senior thesis examined how ethical leadership and social responsibility could drive business success. His professors called it groundbreaking. Lawmakers used it to shape policy. The ripple effects continued. Within 18 months, 12 major airlines worldwide had implemented reforms inspired by Flight 502. Hotels, restaurants, and even healthcare institutions began adopting similar dignity standards. The U.S. Congress passed the Dignity in Transit Act, requiring all transportation industries to undergo mandatory bias training. Jordan's name became synonymous with calm strength. His story was taught not as a tale of humiliation, but as a blueprint for transformation. He often reminded audiences, the most powerful response to discrimination isn't rage. It's systematic change that prevents it from happening again. And Claire Thompson? Her life had been turned upside down, but she embraced the second chance. She stood on global stages speaking to thousands of airline executives. She admitted her failure openly, not to excuse it, but to show that even those who make the worst mistakes can change. Her book, From Bias to Belonging, became a bestseller. Years later, Jordan sat at his desk in his Stanford dorm, reading a text from Claire. Just finished training session number 127. Every time I tell our story, I remember how much we've both grown. Thank you for choosing grace that night. Jordan smiled and replied, "Thank you for proving that change is possible." The boy who had once been told to move to the back of the plane was now leading an international movement. His courage had grounded a flight but lifted an industry, and his story carried a lesson the world could not forget. Dignity is not negotiable. Respect is not optional. And when one person chooses to stand firm against injustice, the ripples can transform the lives of millions.